For thousands of years, human civilizations have asked the same foundational questions. What is ultimate reality, and how does the human mind actually perceive it? We have historically approached these questions through three distinct avenues: direct mystical experience, rigorous philosophical logic, and modern, measurable scientific mechanism. In the 17th century, the Islamic philosopher Mulla Sadra achieved a rare intellectual synthesis. His doctrine of transcendent wisdom merged Aristotelian reasoning, internal mystical illumination, and Islamic revelation into a single, unified metaphysical system. Today, we attempt to understand consciousness through physical evidence. The Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM, offers a contemporary framework that explains cognition, memory, and emotion through systems theory, contemporary neuroscience, and continuum mechanics. A 17th century ontological philosophy and a 21st century neurodynamic model operate in completely different domains. Yet an analysis of their underlying architectures reveals a profound convergence. Both frameworks reject the concept of static entities, replacing them with a reality built on continuous, dynamic processes. It is easy to assume that ancient metaphysics and hard neuroscience are locked in competition, where one must eventually disprove the other. To accurately compare them, we have to look at the hierarchy of explanation. Reality is studied at distinctly different scales of organization. Mulla Sadra operates at the top of this hierarchy. His ontology asks what existence itself actually is. The Brain Kinematics Model operates on the lower tiers. It investigates the precise functional organization and physical mechanisms of the human brain. In scientific inquiry, complementarity occurs when two different models are required to explain a single phenomenon fully, because neither model alone covers every property. If we want to comprehend human consciousness, we require the mechanics of BKM to observe how the brain functions, but we require the ontology of a framework like Mulla Sadra's to explore what that brain is actually experiencing. For centuries, thinkers treated reality, and the brain itself, as a collection of rigid, isolated modules waiting to be activated. Mulla Sadra broke from this tradition with his core doctrine of substantial motion, or harakat al-jawhariyah. Sadra argued that existence is defined by its constant state of becoming. Here, motion is the substance of reality, rather than an external event acting upon it. Now, look at the Brain Kinematics Model. It begins with a similar rejection of static neural representations. BKM defines neural strain fields as the continuous redistribution of physical tension and energy across the entire neural medium. Conscious organization emerges as these strain patterns shift and stabilize across the brain's physical architecture, mirroring Sadra's vision of a reality that is never fixed. Across both 17th century metaphysics and modern continuum mechanics, motion provides the baseline structural foundation for reality. If existence is in constant motion, how do distinct, stable levels of complexity arise? Mulla Sadra addresses this through the doctrine of the gradation of being, or tashkik al-wujud. He reasons that reality is not divided into separate, disconnected kinds of existence. Rather, it forms a single, continuous spectrum of stronger and weaker intensities. This continuum of intensity maps directly onto BKM's framework for conscious organization. BKM measures degrees of consciousness through highly specific physical parameters: the density of network connectivity, the synchronization of oscillatory dynamics, and integration of cortical processing. As these parameters increase, the organization of the brain grows more complex. Higher states of consciousness represent measurable, graded intensifications of the system's own organization. This dynamic structure changes how we understand the very act of observation and learning. Classical philosophy treated acquiring knowledge like storing a file on a hard drive. The data was gathered, but the observer remained unchanged. Sadra challenged this with the unity of the knower and the known. He argued that true knowledge is an existential event. The act of knowing alters the structural organization of the knower. We see this existential transformation in BKM through the mechanics of structural plasticity. In BKM, memory consolidation and data integration reorganize the brain's connectivity and neural strain architecture. Here we must define their methodological limits. Sadra accepts existential realization and inner illumination as valid evidence. BKM strictly requires experimental observation and testable hypotheses. Both frameworks suggest that knowledge is an existential event, resulting in a structural transformation of the system's underlying organization. This convergence presents an intriguing question for modern science. Can a neurodynamic model provide an empirical vocabulary for classical mysticism? Contemplative traditions consistently report a specific set of phenomenological data, a sense of progressive inner unity, altered perception of time, and emotional purification. This diagram shows a human neural mesh mapping the parameters of the Brain Kinematics Model against these common subjective reports. Reports of altered states of consciousness align with measurable changes in the brain's oscillatory coordination and its ability to integrate large-scale cortical regions. What mystics call emotional purification, BKM observes as the physical readjustment of neural connectivity and memory dynamics. This mapping identifies biological correlates of mystical states without making claims about their metaphysical validity or reducing them to mere neural firing. What BKM provides is a rigorous, non-reductive physical framework to observe the precise biological processes that accompany deep contemplative realization. The Brain Kinematics Model makes zero claims regarding the ultimate metaphysical nature of reality. It is a tool of mechanism. But neuroscience without philosophy risks falling into strict reductionism. It requires a robust architecture of process and gradation to interpret the data it produces. Conversely, classical metaphysics risks remaining completely abstract if it lacks a solid, modern scientific framework of predictive mechanics. By examining Mulla Sadra alongside modern cognitive science, we see that ancient wisdom and empirical research can mutually illuminate one another without forcing one to collapse into the other. The ultimate reality of existence is an unbroken, dynamic continuum. We require continuum mechanics to understand precisely how the brain organizes that reality. We require transcendent philosophy to understand the stakes of that organization.